Welcome to Buddy's Designs. I'm working in the Colin Thompson colouring book, Fantastique, and I'm working in, I call it the water lily page because it has the water lilies. I'm using my inktense pencils, and I'm using them in a slightly different way. This is a little bit faster, so I'm using a pencil and a damp rigger paintbrush. So we're stroking the colour onto the page, and then we're teasing in some shadow. And you don't have to do this if you don't want to, because the grayscale's already done, but if you feel you want to just put a little bit of a dark shadow anywhere, stroking the end of the pencil and just teasing with a paintbrush, you've got some quite nice control. Oops. So I try to keep putting the pencils back where I get them from, so they're in order, because they're easier to find. They're actually in my little Derwent pencil bag, and they're like little sleeves that you can lift out and use, so you can see all your pencils. But you can't always determine what colours they are at the ends. So I'm using my little colour book, which is full of actual colour, but I'm using the scale, the colour scales that I've got on there, so that I know just how strong I want that to be. So I quite like the madder brown, because it reminds me of the old-fashioned red. Just got to find madder brown. Bear with me. Madder brown is here. Now I haven't sharpened them too much, these, because I'm waiting for my, because I've been sharpening them with my Derwent ordinary pencil sharpener, and I don't really like it, so I'm waiting to shape to actually sharpen all mine to a really high point, using my scalpel blade and something from Derwent called a sharpening guard. And basically it's to use a very sharp craft knife, but this is working quite well. I don't have a point on here, but I am just stroking a little bit of colour roughly where I need it, because when it's damp you're going to manipulate the colour where you want, so you don't always need a very, very sharp point, because you're going to get in the corners with your paintbrush. So I've stroked some colour onto there. I'll leave the paintbrush out for a minute because I may want to do some highlights. And I want my number 3. This works quite well with this method, a number 3 rigger from De La Rowney, because it's quite a long one, and it has a nice point on the end. So this is just damp. So I've got a tablespoon of water in my little pot, and the lid's quite good, so you're not damaging the paint brush. And then twisting it on a damp baby wipe, so that leaves you with just a damp brush. And then as soon as you touch these inktense pencils, this colour comes alive, and you can manipulate it where you want as a flat colour. So this is the palest colour we want, and then you can just tease that around. So this is why you didn't need a sharp point. As soon as you can wet that brush, you can manipulate it and push that colour where you want it. I'm at a slightly wrong angle here, but again, and because it's a grayscale, you can actually just do the flat colour, and the grayscale does everything for you. But if you really wanted to, you can do some shadowing effects in a second. So just get this to here, and then just go into there and activate that really vivid colour. So obviously the metal handles will be metal, but this is leather. So again, you can either change the colour of the leather, and we don't actually want too much, but you can manipulate it by touching the actual end of the pencil and stroking that colour in. And again, you've got that little bit more control. So you can just, you need a damp brush and just tease that colour in. And as I say, because of the grayscale, you've got the natural highlight there already. So if you wanted a darker shadow, and this is where the damp brush, this is a 10-0, and it's a very fine point, so you can touch the end of the pencil and get that little brush exactly where you want it. And now you could not do that with a paintbrush, a pencil, because you'd have to sharpen it every moment to keep that very sharp point. So you can go into there and really tease some dark shadows where you want them. And that's what I love about this method, is you can get a fairly flat colour down and then go back in and put the detail in. And again, you can just have maybe a little bit more down there. And tease that colour around. So you've got kind of a little bit of a height. The grayscale is actually easier than anything else, because you can put a flat colour down first if you want to, or you can play. So I would like a tiniest shadow just on the inside of that leather clasp, and possibly here a little bit as well. But again, the grayscale is really good because it actually shows you exactly where you want the darkness. Otherwise, you'd have to think about it separately. So they look quite nice together. So we need to find a bit of a brass yellow colour, or a dull gold. And I've just made a mistake because I've forgotten the leather strap on that one, and we said that was baked earth. So again, because you know really rough what you're doing, you can go back in here. Now I can either just very carefully just put the smallest amount of colour on there. I think there might be leather straps as well, actually. And then when you activate it, I've got the wrong brush, but it will do. You get the natural, actually it was the right brush. If you've got any fine detail, the 10-0 brush is really good. And again, you touch the end of the pencil and we can just put in a little bit of a dark shadow under here, where there would be some dark shadow. I think that's probably metal. That would be metal. This is all metal edges. I think that would be kind of not metal there. Oh yes, I always go to the pound shop. I bought a couple from the pound shop yesterday. In fact, I forgot to show those. Where did I put them? I bought... Yes, that was naughty because I bought two other ones as well. I got the World of Art Country Scenes and Cottages and Castles, and they were in the pound shop, so I thought they'd be quite nice. Forgot to show those. So I bought 8. Actually, I actually bought 8 yesterday. So that was quite a lot. So I said I wanted a bit of a goldy colour, so the cadmium is quite nice. So if I look at the cadmium, that's kind of a bit of a brass colour. But we'll look at the yellows and see what they're like. There's a mustard that has some quite nice colours on it here. But I think I like that one. I think I like the Sicilian yellow. So again, in fact, there would be metal. Actually, I'm going to probably leave those. I do have a grey, but I'm going to leave those for a minute because I actually have some metallic pencils, so I might actually use some metallics. There is a pewter colour which is quite nice. So I think I'm going to use my Derwent metallic pencil, and it has a little water brush on it there. And that means that you can use it with a paintbrush. So again, I can just very carefully stroke without any pressure on all the little catches and screws. And this one has kind of metal corners to protect it. So that might look quite nice. And then again, you just activate and tease that colour around. It just brings them to life a little bit. And again, I think we have an octopus there somewhere, so we'll just tease that round. And all the work's done for you. You just need to tease that colour to life with a damp brush. And I like just to take off that stark white. I don't like that stark white. And so that's just done that little job for me. And then we can possibly just take a little touch, and you can always have a practice. You should always have a piece of printer paper so you can just test. And that to me looks like a luggage colour. So again, you could just kind of give that just a little bit of something with a damp brush and tease a bit of colour in there. And you don't want it too bright, just so that it looks like a fawn or a brown luggage label. Perhaps I should have had my slightly bigger paintbrush. And I'm just going to touch that brown one there. Rather than getting the pencil out, I don't want too much, so I've got a luggage label on there now. I'm not sure what that is. I think it's a book, but I'm not quite sure, so I'm going to do these. Should do this kind of foliage here. So I've got a craving on this apple green at the moment. So again, I'm just going to very carefully, the lightest touch. And if you do the lightest touch at the top, so you're just touching the top of the leaf, the slightest amount of green, each leaf just wants the tiniest amount of green, and you probably get away with that. Now it is a small space, so I'm actually going to do that with the small brush, 10-0, and that one is number 114, apple green. And so we're going to take the tiniest amount of water and activate that. And stroke that colour down. So we're activating the pencil colour and then stroking it down. And you probably have to do everyone separate because it's a small brush this. Activate the colour and stroke it down, and that's going to give you a nice natural highlight. But you can colour the whole leaf the same if you want. I just kind of thought that this would look quite nice. So once you've activated that green, just tease it down. And it's a bit of a pea green, is that? It's not coming up very well on the monitor, but it should be quite a pea green. So anybody that finds anything in the pound shop, yeah, have a go, because of course you know it's only £1, so you're not. No, I'm actually going to cheat a bit. I'm going to the apple green on here, and again I'm just going to touch a little bit of colour because I just want to activate under this one. So I could actually go to the 2-0 is going to be probably a little bit better to activate that colour. And again, touch the colour and then just stroke that down. And again, you're using a damp brush, so this will work on any paper. Doesn't matter how thin it is. This is brilliant for Bible journaling. It will leave your pages wrinkle free. Of course, if you don't mind wrinkles, you can do it as wet as you want, but I kind of like mine a bit flatter. So I find this way is a bit quicker because it's just that little bit faster than working my normal way. So I quite like that idea as well, because you know, it's nice to do something that takes you 2 or 3 days, but sometimes you just want to be that little bit faster. But you still don't want the pages to be wet. So we've got some quite nice shades there. And of course it's the same. And then does that look like a flower? Yes, I think that's a flower rather than a leaf. No, I think they're leaves. So again, I've got the apple green, and we can kind of really make that more vibrant now. And you don't need much in the way of colour. Just a little bit of colour. If you don't want to highlight, you don't have to have a highlight. You can colour the whole thing in, and you'll probably find when you've activated that green, it is a flat colour. But again, it's not really an issue because the grayscale's been done for you. So you can have a really nice flat leaf. And that's fairly quick, is that? It's a fairly quick way of drawing it. And then if you've got the faintest amount of green on here, you can tease it down the stem. So I was quite pleased to find this way of working. I'd forgotten about using the pencils. So we've got some quite nice shading on there. So that leads us to the brown kind of gnarly kind of tree bark. And again, I want to have a look because this looks like a kind of a straw colour. So I do have some nice straw colours. I think the mustard would be quite nice because that's going to be quite pale. So we'll find the mustard colour and we'll tease a little bit of colour into there. And again, you don't really want much because if you put that colour into here, two things, you've actually got the grayscale, so that's quite nice. So again, number 3 rigger, just activate that colour and then drag it down where you want it. And that's going to give you a nice amount of colour, and again just tease that colour back up there. So I've had to think about that because I didn't want a dark brown because this is going to be a darker brown. And again, if you can just tease that colour in there. And then again we need some more down here. So I'm going to put the flat colour down here, and again it does hurt my thumbs, I've got to be a bit careful. So excuse the odd angle of holding my paintbrush, which I would probably have been told off for at school. And again, just tease all that lovely mustardy, goldy brown colour which I've used for this straw hut. So if anybody's got any questions, pop them in caps. So thank you for joining me this afternoon and this morning, wherever we are on the planet. I've said hello to everybody. So this is a live stream for Ustream.tv and also recorded for YouTube for people to watch at their leisure. And I kind of like, I do like that yellow. There's a sherbet lemon which is quite pale. I'm looking for a nice oak brown. So I've got to think about these wooden panels here. So they will be quite nice dark. Just have a quick look at the browns. The tan is a quite nice colour. So the tan and the mustard. Tan is actually slightly darker. So I know I can look at my tan. I don't have a point on it, and I could really do with a bit of a point on that. So I'm going to have to use my pencil sharpener, which I haven't got. Yeah, I'm going to have to sharpen it with a blade, but I'm going to do that off camera because you need to know what you're doing. So when my guard comes from Derwent, I will show you how to sharpen a pencil that doesn't damage either the wood and when you use this method you can actually do lots of things. If you're doing a proper watercolor with this way, you can add texture and interest to the painting. which I will be doing when we do Art in the Abbey. So it's quite a bad sharpening, but it does give me a bit of an angle, so I can just very carefully just stroke a little bit of colour into there. And because it's the lightest touch, I'm not going to go over the lines. You don't really want to go over the lines because you can manipulate the colour where you want with the paintbrush. You're just adding the colour to the page. So I've got to be a little bit careful. If I had a lovely point on the end, but my sharpener's in the other room, so again, just the tiniest amount, because again you want some difference in there. But if you are short of the line, that's okay, because you can manipulate with the brush. So I will put the green apple away, and I need my small brush for this. So teasing that colour, and that changes it. So where I was scribbling on there, it's dark, and then that's given me a natural highlight around the corner. So again, I can tease this colour alive, but then manipulate it down here. And if you haven't got enough colour, you just want a damp brush, and you can tease a little bit of colour in here, because this is pure colour off this paintbrush now. So again, tease the colour to life, and then manipulate it where you want. And I wanted a different colour, but not exactly the same, but just a bit darker than the one that was there. And you can really have some nice, precise colouring with this method, because you're just working with a very, very small paintbrush. And if I want a little bit of colour, as I would do this away from your page, but teasing a little bit of colour on the damp brush, and that's just giving me enough. So if you do a practice page, you learn how much colour you need, how much is on the pencil, how much you need to manipulate it. So a slightly bigger brush would have been better for the colour, but I wouldn't have had the control over that. And that is a pair of hands there, so that's a bit scary. So again, I can't get the colour into there, but I can with this really fine brush. And possibly here could do with a little bit more colour, but there's been a natural highlight just landing on there. Teasing that colour out. Again, you can see the colour coming alive, and that's a lot paler, so actually that looks like there's light hitting it. So you don't have to do that. You can do a dead flat colour, and you're still going to have a decent page. And it's very flat and almost dry immediately, which is quite nice, because quite often you put your hand on top. So this is a really nice, quiet, again, easy way. I've got one paintbrush, I've got one pencil out, and I can get at least 10 shades of watercolor from this one pencil, and I've got a little brush and a tablespoon of water. So if I spill that, it's not going to be the end of the world. And I don't even need a palette. The palette is actually the page. It gets drawn straight onto the page, and then you activate it into a watercolor. So I quite like some of these natural shades here. So there's an actual chest behind there, and that looks like it's a balloon. So that's a bit of a scary thing. I've got some green palm trees behind here. So I've now finished with my tan colour. So that goes away, and there's not paintbrushes, pencils rolling everywhere again, which I quite like. So I could do with a bit of a dark, probably a leaf green maybe in there. So again, I've got leaf green. Just stroke it a little bit where I want it, very carefully. And it's a grayscale, so all the work's been done for you if you don't really want to do anything. And then I will go back to my number 3 rigger because it's a nice big size. She can remember where she put it. And then you're just kind of going to activate that and push it up to the line. So all you're doing is manipulating that colour, and because I put it at an angle of the actual leaves, it'll keep a lot of that straightness. So you'll still keep that, and the rest of it will be teased away. And again, tease that to the top corner, so you don't really need the pencil to push any colour in any corner. You can be just short of the line every time, because if you try to get to the line with the pencil, the chances are you will go over, because the pencil is a lot smaller and you have less control than you do with a paintbrush. And just stroke that colour roughly where you want it, and that's just given a little bit of green behind there, and kind of that's finished now. You don't have to touch that anymore. So that was fairly quick for that, apart from the clock and my so where are we now? So there is a strange hand there. Now in the Derwent pencils, the ordinary watercolour pencils, there is something called flesh pink, but it isn't pink. It's just an off-white colour. It's an ivory colour. So if I show on here, I would say that was more cream than pink. But what it does do, so it's just a warm pink. So, but what it does do is and I can't get in there, it's impossible to get in there. That's the same width as my little brush. That's a 10-0. So what you can do, again, you can do that over, is to get a lot of colour on the end, and you want the pure watercolour from the end of the pencil. and then you can just stroke a little bit of that flesh pink, and that just takes the stark white from your page. I mean, there's not much in it, but it just does that. And I use that for the little creatures and the little hands and the little faces. Anything that has a skin complexion, I just do that. And that's just taken that horrid white starkness away. And there's a cherub here. So again, there is actually a lot of colour on this paintbrush, but you can't see it. If I hold that next to a dart, you can see there is quite a bit of colour on there. And all it does, it just very carefully takes that horrid stark white away. So it looks like you haven't missed it. It looks like you've actually done something to it. It doesn't look like you've just left it white because you don't know what colour to do. And then it just warms it up very slightly. And again, grayscale, everything's done for you. It's just warm. You can barely tell a difference, but when the page is finished, you can actually tell that you have put colour there. So there's lots of little hands and things all over that I use that one for. And that's called Flesh Pink number 16 in the ordinary Derwent watercolours. So there is a saddle on the back of the seahorse. So again, you don't have to do the seahorse the right colours. There's a bit of a wooden chest there, but I think I'm going to put that probably, let me have a think of colours. I'll probably do a yellow. The golden yellow looks quite nice. And as I say, you don't have to do it. You can choose whatever colours you want. I think I'll have Sicilian yellow because I quite like that one. So again, I'm just stroking a little bit in there. Very light touch. There's no pressure downwards. At all. And again, we've got those metal corners. So a clean, dry brush, damp, activate that colour and push it around until you can get it in all your corners. And you have a nice flat colour. If you want, you can scribble in 2 different shades, but I tend to like one shade because each pencil has got at least 10 shades. So I kind of like the pencil shade itself because it's made from the same pencil colour, and so it's going to be connected. Sometimes if you put one green at one end and a purple at the other, it's not really connected. But if you have a purple, a green, and then you have the true green, a darker green, so you're using this for the shadow and this for the highlight and a middle colour, it's all connected because it's the same colour. And sometimes that works slightly better. And I've missed that little bit around there. Now if I really wanted, and that was completely dry, and it's completely dry, I can then go over it again if I want to. Or you can build the colour up before you add the water. Now once the Inktense have dried after you've activated them, they are set. But the Derwent watercolours are not. So once this is set, you can run a wet brush over the top and it will not move, because they're made of an ink. But if you use the Derwent watercolor pencils, you can move them around all the time and reactivate them with water. And I don't really have to do anything with that, it's already done. Yes, he's quite an amazing guy, isn't he? Scooby says it's mesmerising. If you look at every single thing in it, it's quite mesmerising. I mean, my doodle is books. I do books, but I don't do anything else. My doodle is just lots and lots of books drawn with a black ink pen, falling over in bookcases. But I don't normally do. I don't do anything else, and I don't have an imagination to draw lots of things like this. Let me have a look. So again, it's a good idea to look through your colours. And I do want to do something with that clock face, but I can't think. In actual fact, I thought that was kind of a clock, but it isn't. So we need... we actually need the gold out of here as well, because the gold is the one I use for all my interiors. If there's a light shining through a window, I use the Derwent Watercolor Gold number 3, and I find that is like the warm glow from a window. I actually thought that was a carriage clock, but it isn't. It's actually it's an alarm clock. So again, just a touch of that, and it doesn't make any difference that this is a Derwent watercolor pencil and the other one was inktense. It's still quite a vibrant gold, and I still want to push that up there. So I've kind of got like a little open, there's obviously some warmth in there from a light or a fire. So I need to do something with the clock face, but I'm going to leave it at the moment. So we'll come back down to these water lilies. And I'm going to, I think I like the apple green again. I think that's a really nice colour. So what you can do with this is, on the outside, just very carefully tease a little bit of this colour. And then you can do 3 or 4 colours if you want. As again, I don't normally do this, but this is another way of using these pencils. And then you can put that one away, and you can look. So that was the apple green. So you can look at the two I like best together are Felt's green is quite good, but I like Hooker's green. And so again, just stroking in, scribbling in all the other colours, all the other spaces. I can't talk today, sorry. All the other dark space, and it's going over the top and through, and that means we're going to mix 2 greens together when we activate them with water. And you can do this as many times as you want. You could put 30 colours down on one space. In fact, very quickly, I will show you. in the pineapple page, I think there's 12 colours there that were all scribbled. There's a cadmium yellow, and then there was a brighter yellow. So there were 12 colours scribbled into there, including hooker's green and apple green. And then I activated them with water, and then you get that lovely kind of mixture. And the beauty of these watercolours, either with the Inktense or the Derwent, you can mix as many colours together as you want and you don't get mud. And that's got to be kind of magic. Oops. So I'm starting with the apple green because it's the palest, and then I'm building into the hooker's green, and that's given me a lovely shade. Again, you're just activating with water, but go in your palest colour first, and then into the hooker's green, or whichever green you've got. Now I could have done 3 greens. So if you're mixing them like this, this is a difference. You can use different ones. If it's something small that's always the same colour, but you can do whatever you want. You can put a pink and a purple together. I think when I did the dragon, I think I used 6 colours when I did the dragon on the pineapple page. Colours that I wouldn't have normally used, but I googled it. And I didn't find a drawing of a dragon. I found a metallic porcelain dragon, and I love the colours, so I matched them. And so again, you mix these colours together actually on the paper, and again it's very, very damp, and it's dried almost instantly, so you do have to be a little bit quick with this. Sorry, I apologise, bark alert. Because these are Inktense, and once they're dried you are not going to move that colour, so you do individual ones and then manipulate it where you want it. And it's a little bit damp, but it's almost done. Oh, thank you, Scooby. Yeah, I was quite surprised with the pineapple one, because again I'd never used these like this. I'd forgotten all about using them like this. But it's so much quicker than the old way, and you can do any size. It's a bit restrictive is the other way I used to do it, watercolouring. It's a little bit restrictive because you can only do it in small spaces, but this one you can draw a huge background with pencil, and then you can just activate it a little bit at a time and keep a natural flow through. So that was fairly quick for me, and it's dried and it's flat, which is really important for me. So I now need a green to go at the back, so I quite like a beach green, slightly different. And again, if you just that little bit, I find it a bit hard to do, but just pressing a little bit darker with the pencil, and where you want it very dark, and then, as I say, with the number 3, I find this one the best size because it's got the dampness that you need. You can just tease that colour up. And all the work's been done for you with the grayscale. And I'm trying to think what colour they are. Maybe a fuchsia pink. Maybe a fuchsia pink. And if you can just put a dot of colour at the bottom of every petal. Just a dot. So that's quite a small space. So if you saw, there was a little dot of colour. A little dot of colour. It could be a bark alert because there is a young man outside. Just bear with me 2 seconds. I don't know who he is. Oh, he may be coming here. Just bear with me 2 seconds. Let's see if I can get there first. Is he coming here, do we think?